Hello. Good afternoon friends of the Jose Manuel H Garage channel. This afternoon I'm going to make a video about changing the oil in the front forks of the Virago 250/15. In this case, it's from 98, but the procedure is exactly the same for all Viragos, at least 125 and 2 and 5, I think they're all the same. And I'm also going to not only change the oil in the forks, but I'm also going to change the oil seals, okay. Hey, when I dampen, there's one of the forks, I don't remember which one, if it's this one on the left, that loses a little bit of oil, not much, a little bit, but anyway, since I'm going to take the trouble of disassembling the bars and changing the oil, I'll take advantage and change the seals. Here I have the seal kit. The dust covers are not necessary because the dust covers are very good, very hydrated and don't have any problems. But the seals, which are important to prevent oil leaks. Here they are, I'm going to change them. And this is the oil that I'm going to put in, model SAE 10 fork oil, okay? SAE 10 is the type of oil recommended by the manufacturer, so I'm going to respect the parameters indicated by the manufacturer and I'm going to follow the procedure. Well, the first thing to do to change the oil, for those of you who don't need to, and those of you who don't want to change the oil seals because you don't have any oil leaks or such, the procedure is exactly the same. It's just that from what I'm going to describe, you skip the part where I change the seals. In other words, you save that step, which is the most complicated step, the seals. The rest is all quite simple. It's a bit cumbersome because you have to disassemble the two fork bars and such. The wheel, etc., is a bit cumbersome, but it's not that difficult either. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is remove the front wheel. To remove the front wheel, what we have to do is loosen this screw here and the little nut here. Anyway, I have a specific video on how to remove the front wheel, but that's it. Okay, well, before that, what I'm going to do is remove the brake caliper. In other words, before what I told you, I'm going to loosen this screw here and then remove the brake caliper. Once we've unscrewed the two bolts on the front brake caliper bracket, it's as easy as moving it back and forth, until we remove the caliper. Okay, it's a little tricky by hand, right? I'll remove it and continue. Okay, the brake caliper is now loose. Now what we're going to loosen is the axle adjustment screw here. Okay, we're going to loosen this screw and then remove the axle. Once we have loosened this screw here, using a 19mm wrench, we loosen the wheel axle counterclockwise, okay? Carefully remove it when it comes out so as not to lose any of the separating elements on this side or the odometer gearbox on this side. It is important not to lose it. Okay, well, I will continue loosening it and remember, the important thing is to respect the order of all the elements here and all the elements here, okay? The axle. So, now what we are going to do is, as we remove the little things from each side, we put them on the axle itself so as not to lose them later. Okay? On this side we have this separator that goes in this position, we put it on the axle, okay? And on this other side, let's see, there is nothing else left here. And on this other side we have the odometer gearbox. And that's it. Okay. And with this we can now remove the wheel. Well, we remove the wheel. Done. And we store the axle here where all the other stuff is. The next thing we have to do is remove the front fender. To remove the front fender, these are 4 screws, 1 and 2. And on this side, what we have to be careful of is that the top one is holding this brake hose bracket, okay. So, we have to be careful when removing it to respect this brake hose bracket. Okay, it's a 10mm hex and that's it, I'm going to loosen the 4 bolts. Well, when I loosen the 4 bolts, you see, the front fender comes right off. Here we put it. And this is what I was telling you about the brake line bracket, okay. It's important to remember. I'm going to put the screws in their place here because they don't get in the way in this case, and that way I don't lose them and I always know where they are. When I disassemble, I try to put the screws back in their place. Sometimes it's not possible because otherwise they prevent me from continuing to disassemble, but when it's possible, I do it. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is loosen these two bolts here on top of the seat post, okay? So that they don't press on the top of the fork. Loosen them, because if not, loosen these two bolts on top of the fork because it's easier to loosen them here when they're mounted than if they're held in place later. If we remove them, we'll have to use something to hold them in place to loosen them. But to loosen these bolts, we first have to loosen the two nuts on the top of the seat post. I'm going to loosen them. Okay, as you can see, I've already loosened the two bolts or screws here, and now that the fork is still attached from below with a 19mm hex wrench, I can now loosen them, leave them a little loose without removing them, okay? I'll leave the two bolts here a little loose. Okay. And now I can remove the fork. Okay, I'll loosen this one too, so I don't waste any more time. And once I've loosened those two, what's left to do is loosen this screw here and this screw here. And once they're loosened, I can now remove the fork, okay. The bar, pushing like this, turning it down a little bit. Remember what the position is so you don't make a mistake when putting them back in. Okay, remember what the position is in this case. Let's see, like this. This is the position. The two, like this, the two lugs pointing this way. In my case, where I have the ITV inspection, that would be the fork that's on our right, which is the left fork. And the other one, the one without the sticker, the one on our left, which is the right fork. This would be the position. Well, I'll loosen these two screws and now I'll remove the forks. Well, with a 17mm hex wrench I've already loosened the two screws here, and look how easy it is to pull the fork down. There's nothing else. We pull down. I already have the right fork. And the same for the left fork. Okay? This is how the bike looks right now, without the front wheel and without the forks. Okay, now we're going to remove the old oil. The fork oil should be changed every 4 years at the latest, okay? You have to change it every 4 years, no matter what. It's not expensive. A 1-liter can is worth it. This model cost me €13 and you need 600cc. That's 1000cc, and I think it's like 650 that's needed to fill both forks, and that's every 4 years, okay? If it hasn't been changed for a long time, now when we open it here, it has a very characteristic, horrible smell, or it usually smells terrible and it's usually quite brown. Now we'll see how this fork looks. Okay, as I was saying, you have to be careful because when you finish loosening it, it pops up a little bit. Not much, but a little bit, okay, due to the effect of the spring. So, on one side we have the cap that has an O-ring and I'm going to put it in place here. Wait a second, and with one hand, excuse me, I'll put it in place and we'll continue. The next thing we have is the spacer, okay? Spacer. Okay, the next thing we have is the spring stop washer and the spring. Well, we put it in, we take out the washer and the spring by pulling it upwards, okay? Well, now we've taken the spring out, okay? The spring is out and now we can drain it. Well, the oil doesn't look too bad, it's reddish, which is the original color this one would have had. I don't know when it was changed last time, but look, it doesn't smell too bad. And now what we have to do, well, you see, it's already coming out a little bit black. Okay, and now what we have to do is drain it all well, okay? Well, I recommend wearing gloves and such because this is quite dirty, okay? And now the only thing we have to do is to continue draining the oil. Well, that's it, spread it out and, okay, you see how it sounds. Well, that's it. We do it several times like this downwards until all the oil comes out. With a little patience, be patient because it's about trying to get all the old oil out, okay? So that there's no contaminated oil left to mix with the new. Okay, well, let's continue with this procedure. If you're not sure, now I'll tell you how much to add according to yesterday's manual. But if you're not sure how much new oil to add, what many people do is pour all the oil, like we're doing here at a recycling site. Then all this oil is deposited in a test tube. Now I'll show you the test tube because we'll also do it in case someone is watching this for another bike and doesn't know how much to put in. And depending on the oil that's filled into the test tube, that's the one we have to put in, okay. The one we took out is the one that should be added as long as we're sure that the oil the fork was using was the right one, because many times due to leaks and such, it has less oil than it should. In other words, the best thing to do would be to check the oil that the fork should be using and empty it completely, okay? The next thing we have to do is remove the dust cover. And we do that very carefully, very carefully. If you're going to put the same one back on, which is my case because I don't have a spare, with a screwdriver, very carefully, gently, it comes out. Okay, you take it out and now we'll remove the dust cover from here. That's the next step. Next, what we have to do, okay. The next thing we have to do is remove the oil seal clip. It's a small staple that I'm seeing here, we're not seeing it well. Let's see if you can see it. It's like a small piece of iron. Let's see, there you can see it. Okay, this small piece of iron there and this small piece there is a hole washer, a staple. Then, with a screwdriver, insert the sender carefully, very gently, with a flat tip and remove this staple from the oil seal, okay? Because the next thing we see there is the oil seal, which we will change later. Do you see how it's coming out? Excuse me. Let's see, it's by inserting the screwdriver like this. Okay, and that's how it comes out. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Do you see that it's without one here? And then we take it out. I'm going to do the same thing now on the left. Okay, well, by inserting the screwdriver also on the left, it has come out by itself. And this is what the staple looks like. Okay, that holds the oil seal. And now what we have to do is remove this, the oil seal, okay. Or the oil seal, as it's called, which is the one we're going to replace with a new one. And now I'll tell you how to do it. Look, one of the things I suspected before continuing to remove the oil seal, what I've done is what I told you before, I've deposited all the oil that I've extracted. Also, in this case, I haven't lost any in the test tube, and it gives me less than 200 cubic centimeters. With a lot of luck, this little bit that's left there that I'm draining, 200 cc, and the amount of oil that this fork has is 310 cc, that is, it needs about 110 cc. No wonder I noticed that the damping was quite bad. So, I think it's also that this one specifically, which is the left one, is the one that was leaking through the oil seal. So, I think it's been losing oil. It has been losing oil and look at how much it has lost. At first, about 110 cc. Let's see now how much oil is left when we remove the bolt from here below. If I have a tool, I'm not sure if I have a tool. Let's see if some more oil comes out, which will come out a little more, but at least 100 cc of oil was missing, that is, a third. Well, before continuing with the oil change in the forks and the oil seals, I wanted to tell you that, look, I had told you that the oil capacity of each of the forks was 310 cc and that I had about 200, which was very little and that I thought I had lost. But I have realized that this manual is from the 2001 and my bike is from 98. For 98, this manual that I have in English says that the capacity of each of the forks is 245 cc. Therefore, depending on the year of your model, it will be one capacity or another and you should make sure. In my case, it is 245 cc, so it only had a difference of 50 cc with respect to its real capacity. Okay, another thing I wanted to tell you about and very important is the issue of tools. I stopped for a few days because I didn't have any tools. So, I've been looking at the tools I needed because to change the fork seals you do need specific tools and they're not cheap. Okay, so, look, hey. What the manual says is that we need, this tool, which is, a T-shaped rod. And then we need another tool, which is the end of this T-shaped rod, which is nothing more than a very thin hexagonal, very thin, which fits into this T and which, theoretically, is 22 millimeters, okay. This little rod, which is called the shock absorber rod holder, no, sorry, the T-crank, which is this reference, 90890-01326, costs around €70 per crank. And then the shock absorber rod holder, which would be this 22 millimeters coupler that I'm telling you about, which is reference 90,890-0165, costs another €50. And then later on, that would be needed to actually remove the rod from the bottle, okay? Because what we have to do now, we'll see how to do it, is loosen this screw. And it has a nut, an 8 millimeters Allen nut. On this side, I bought the Allen bit, it cost me €8, and then on the other side it has the 22 millimeters one. But it's deep in the bottle and you can only access it through this long T-crank, okay? And then, to put the new seal in, that's to take it out. But then to put the new seal in, you need this little device here, which they call the fork seal drive ballast, which is part number 90890-01367, and the adapter is this size, which is 90890-01369, and between the two it costs another €100 in total. If we buy all the tools they tell us here to do it, it will cost us €250. Okay, well, what I wanted to tell you is that I solved it. It took me some work to figure out how, and I made a mistake once and I bought this that I made, okay. Which is a threading rod, which I bought big because in the end the 22 millimeters didn't fit and it had to be a little less than 22 millimeters. With 20mm it worked well for me. So, I'm going to show you what I bought that works perfectly, which is this rod. Do you see this threading rod? Here I have the bottle that I have already checked to make sure it works. Let's see, excuse me. Do you see? This threading rod cost me €3 because they bent it to be able to apply force. It's not a T, it's an L, but it works perfectly. Well, the rod cost me €3. And then what they call that little tip, okay. The adapter, which is theoretically 22 millimeters, but I'm telling you it's 22 millimeters. I bought these nuts that are exactly 22 millimeters and it doesn't fit. So, the next step after 22 millimeters we found 19 and 5, which is this one. I tried it and it works perfectly. So, these two nuts cost me 30 cents each to make a nut against a nut. This way I insert this rod through the tube, and since it has this 19 millimeters nut, it holds it perfectly. And on the other side, okay? On the other side of the bottle, we use this to hold the screw that is there. I already told you that at first they say it is 22 millimeters, but the 22 millimeters one didn't fit me. And then on this other side here we have an 8 millimeters Allen key. I bought the Allen key, which cost me €8 because then to tighten it you have to tighten it to torque, and since it has a large socket tip, then I can tighten it perfectly to torque. In short, all the, well, and finally, this pusher that they say here, which in total the accessory plus the pusher would have cost €100. I fixed it for €8. Oh, it's falling off. I fixed it for €8 and I bought this tube. I bought 70 centimeters of stainless steel tube. Now I'll tell you how many millimeters, okay. The important thing is the millimeters, and it works perfectly for me with the tips. I'm going to show it to you now. Well, as I was saying, of the almost €200 that the tools would cost me, I've left it at 3.5 for the threaded rod and euro for the two 19mm nuts, okay? One to make a nut against a nut. That's €4 for this large socket from Exabon, that is, an 8mm Allen. Do you see that it fits perfectly here at the back? Perfectly. Look at all the space I have left over, it works perfectly. Okay, this one cost me €8. So, that's €12. And then, finally, this bar that is 42mm. Look, it fits perfectly in the retainer so that when the time comes I can hit it, not by the lips, but by the outside. Do you see? It works perfectly. 42mm. This one cost me €8 because it was stainless steel. I tried this PVC one that cost me less than €1, 40mm, but in the end it hits the lip because, look, it's very thick here. The 40mm is the outer diameter, and when I try it, it hits the lip and it doesn't work. Until I found this stainless steel one because I bought the largest one in PVC. The next one, which is this one here, but no, this one is too big and this one is too big and it doesn't work. But anyway, I paid a little bit for the beginner's price for the dimensions and such, but even so, well, the €3 is not that wrong. Okay, so to recap, what I had to spend to have the tool to change the fork seals was 4 and 8, 12 and 8, €20. With €20 I fixed it. Okay, all this solution, and then I have another one, the TTR, that I have to fix too. And I have to change the fork seals, which I think are 24 instead of 22. So, it's the same philosophy. Threaded rod and buy 2 more nuts that are a little wider. So, with this system, I can use this one for any seal that I have to change. I just have to find out the size of the nut that goes down here, which is the hard part. And also, the only way I've been able to do it is by trial and error, trying, because the 22s haven't worked well for me. Okay, so, well, there are always solutions. It's impossible to do this without tools. You have to do it with tools. So, there's the expensive part, buying the normal tools, and the part that's a little more inventive, which can't solve the problem. Okay, so now all we have to do is insert this rod with this nut on this side to hold the internal nut here, and on the other side, here, we simply loosen it with the ratchet in such a way that we loosen this tube here. I'm going to show you in the graphic so that we can loosen this here, okay? This here goes inside the bottle, okay? Let's see if I can show you better. See? This here goes inside the bottle. So, on the one hand, we have to hold it here, and on the other hand, we have to unscrew it, in such a way that with this we leave free the possibility of extracting the bottle. Okay, now we'll see how to extract the tube from the bottle. Once we have that loose, we'll hold the bottle with a piece of cardboard or whatever so as not to damage the bottle. Now, on a workbench or table, we'll tap it sharply outwards until we manage to extract the retainer. Okay, these are sharp blows and not too strong, because otherwise we could also damage the bushings of the tube, and that's what we're interested in. Okay. We would also have to change the bushings, but to be able to first extract the seal using this method of holding the bottle and giving it sharp blows, we'll see that now. First we have to release this here, okay? And to release it, on one side, I repeat, it is held, and on the other side it is loosened, which is what I'm going to do now. Well, the prediction is very simple. As you can see, I've already placed the bottle, well, the fork, yes, the bottle on the workbench, and on one side I have. You see, if I move this, this moves. They're attached. So here I grab it with my hand and leave it fixed, and here I release it. And the thing is that right now I can't record and do it with both hands, but there's no problem. Okay, I grab here and here I release and that's it, and now we extract that little tube. Okay, look, this would be, I don't think we should do it. Well, I don't think so, no, I'm sure we shouldn't do this method to remove the oil seal, which involves tapping it with this until it comes out, because this system is different. As you've seen, this comes on this side and the rest comes through there inside the bottle, and this is what screws on here. Okay. There. Okay, all we have to do is remove this seal. Okay, look at the post to see the complete breakdown. This is what came through here inside the tube. It has its spring, it has this little spring here, this is what we said came through here. Okay, then you have to clean everything very well before putting it back in. And this little torque wrench comes with a copper washer that has to be replaced with a new one. Okay? So, this is what goes inside here, and this, I repeat, is what comes through here. This is the complete breakdown with the spring included here. Do you see? This is what you have to put in to hold it in place, and it looks like this. I had read that it was hexagonal, but look, it's not hexagonal. And it's exactly the 19 millimeters, right? This 19 millimeters fits me perfectly. This one measures 19 millimeters and it's perfect, it doesn't even move. Okay, perfect for gripping it. Well, now all we have to do is remove the seal, okay? I'm thinking that since I have a bearing puller, it might work well to remove this seal. If not, I would have to be very careful, with a screwdriver or something, working it a little bit very carefully, but anyway, I think I have a bearing puller and I'm going to try to remove it with a bearing puller. Well, I'll continue investigating. Let's see, here between the bottle I have the fork seal and the bushing that's here. Let's see, theoretically what I had studied up until now is that the bushing is completely stuck here and pulling hard, as I was telling you, Pa. The bushing that's stuck here is the one that pulls the oil seal and removes the oil seal. But in this case I can't really tell you if it's broken, which doesn't look like it because I've touched the bushing and the inner race is fine, or if it's just like that. In this case it seems a bit strange to me, but anyway, what we have to do now is remove the seal. From the fork, okay? And I'm going to get the tool. Look, with this set of bearing extractors, I think I'm going to fix it. I've got a big one of these. How does this work? It's inserted where in this case, it's the seal, but let's say, the bearing that you want to extract. Then you screw this in such a way that this here separates and grows. See? Here, as I already knew, with the wrench I've been tightening it in such a way that it's been expanding until it's already hooked the seal well from below. So, once I'm sure it's properly attached and I've made sure, I don't want to tighten it anymore, just in case it happens to me. Let's see if this works for me. I'm not convinced because this is the first time I've done it. Okay, so now the next thing is to screw this in here, okay? And I'm going to pull until I get it out. I'm going to screw it in and we'll continue. Well, the idea with this is that I have it in place and then I'm going to hit it sharply and hard, like this, plaf, plaf, until this starts to pull, and supposedly the seal is extracted. I'm going to give it a try and see if I get lucky and it comes out. Well, yes, indeed, I was lucky and on the third sharp hit it came out. Here we have the seal. Okay, it came out without any further ado. Okay, and here, as you can see, is the bushing. Okay, now it's a matter of cleaning everything really well, putting the new seal in and putting everything back in. Another thing we have to do is measure the service limit of the spring, that is, We have to measure that this spring is within the parameters set by the manufacturer, and if not, it should be replaced. You can see that this mu is also progressive. The coils are closer together here and more separated here at the top. The closer ones go at the bottom, okay? And the further apart go at the top. The total length has to be the minimum service limit is 410, okay? That is, 41 centimeters, and it measures 41 and 5. So then it is perfectly usable. The spring works perfectly. Okay, look, the disassembly has not been very neat because it was done quickly, but neatness is especially important during assembly. So, now I am going to clean all these parts, and I am going to place them all clean in this container that has just been cleaned well with gasoline and has no specks left. So, I clean them all well, and when they are clean I pass them here well cleaned, and from there we assemble them. Okay, let's dig. Okay, now I have all the parts nice and clean, and now I'm going to finish cleaning them with compressed air, okay? The compressor is here. I'm going to apply a little pressure so that there are no specks or foreign elements that can get in through these tiny holes that are so necessary for the oil transfer, and that should never get blocked. Okay? Once everything is clean, we'll start assembling it, and we're going to assemble it in the reverse order to which we disassembled it. So the first thing we're going to do is insert this little tube here. We'll insert it through the tube, through the bar, okay. Then on the other side, we'll screw it in with this screw and change this little copper washer. Okay, so we're going to put this little thing, I don't know what it's called, in this little tube. We're going to put it in, okay? Now we're going to drop it in. Perfect. And now we're going to screw it in with this here in the same way that we screwed it in before. Okay, now that we have it assembled, what we need to do now is tighten it to torque. And the tightening torque of this screw here, once we've put the copper washer on, is 23 N, okay. We'll do it with the torque wrench and 23 N. We'll grab it here to hold it and tighten it to 23 N, okay. Once we've tightened it to 23 N, it's time to put the oil seal in, okay? This is so important that we've changed it. So, the oil seal goes with the lips facing up, okay? And this part goes in like this in this direction, okay? Lips facing up, we put it in here. And well, what's best here is to always put a little bit of grease on it, okay. Lithium grease. We put a little bit of lithium grease on it and put it in. Once the grease is on, it goes in here. It goes in very easily, right? It goes all the way down. And now is the most complicated part, right? Which is that we have to put the seal all the way down until we see that there is a slot to be able to put in this clip that we took out at the time. And so for that, instead of that expensive tool that we mentioned, here we have our Japanese invention that we put in here, right? Putting it in here and hitting. We put it in. The thing is that since I don't want to damage the seal, what I'm going to put in is the old seal. Let's see if it works, I'm not sure. I'm going to put the old seal in so that it hits an old seal. Let's see if the old seal has the strength to push the seal and take it in, right? And so the old seal takes the hits and I don't damage the seal. Yes, perfect. It worked great with the old seal. I've done it. Let's see, I'm going to show it to you so I can try to show it to you. Here's the old seal, and what I've done is hit until the old seal has pushed the new one in. Okay, so now I'm removing the old one and you can see, I don't know if you can see it. Yes, you can see it perfectly. You can see that the slot where this little hook goes is perfectly visible. Okay, now it's time to put this little hook in. Well, now I've made sure that this fits in well. I've made sure that this little wire, whatever it's called, fits perfectly in its slot. Now we put the dust cover on. It's the right thing to put on a new one, but I don't have a new one. I'm going to put the old one on, which wasn't bad anyway. And that's it. The only thing left to do is to put the spring, the spacer, the washer, the oil and the cap that I have there. Okay, well, let's do it and see if we finish. Now the next thing we're going to do is fill the fork with oil. The measurement we have to put is 250 cc. So, we put 250 to 245 in this test tube, exactly, 245 cc. We fill it in the test tube, put it in, and then I'll show you another way to check that the exact amount of oil has been used. It's very important to put the exact amount, because it's designed to have that amount of oil in the corresponding air chamber. If we put more oil than necessary, the air chamber will be smaller and won't work. And if we put less oil than necessary, the air chamber will be larger and won't work either. So, it's very important that we fine-tune it by putting the exact amount that the oil manufacturer tells us to. Okay. The oil is a special oil for forks, and the manufacturer tells us that for the Virago 250 we have to use 10W. Okay. With a density of 10W, I'm going to get the oil. We already have the MUL oil for shock absorbers for forks. Ford oil say 10W as indicated by the manufacturer. Well, now we have to put 245 cm C in the test tube. I already have 245 cm C in the test tube of new, clean modal oil. So now what we have to do is put it in the little tube. Okay, I'm putting it in. Let's see, excuse me, it's a bit difficult for me to do it with my left and right hand. Well, then slowly, I'm going to fill it all in. I'm going to finish filling it in and we'll continue. Okay. Once we've put in all the oil, now carefully, okay. We go down and up several times so that it takes in all the ducts, and releases any air that may have been trapped there when filling. Okay. Let the air out by doing it several times. Don't be afraid to do it several times. It's better to do it as many times as possible. I don't know if you can hear it or not. Okay, I'll keep doing it and now we'll continue. Well, now to make sure that we've put in the right amount of fork oil, what we have to do is without putting the spring in yet, okay. Without putting the spring in yet and with the tube fully compressed, that is, all the way down until it won't compress anymore, which is the case, we have to measure the distance from here up to where the oil is. I think you can see it here. Let's see if you can see where the oil is. Well, you can't see it, because the camera doesn't record it well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a meter and at the bottom of the meter I'm going to put a piece of paper to see if it gets wet or not. Okay? And so the distance that has to be there is 120 millimeters from here to where the oil is, okay? 120 millimeters, that is, 12 centimeters. This is the distance that has to be there from here to where the oil starts. If the distance is greater, we need more oil, and if the distance is less, we have put more oil than necessary. I'm going to measure it with the tape measure to see if we have put it in properly. Look, I've taken the tape measure and I've put a little bit of paper here, okay? To see if it stains or not. Before we said that it should stain exactly 12 centimeters, okay? So it's about putting in, let's see, excuse me, put the tape measure in exactly 12 centimeters, no more, no less. Sorry, it doesn't look bad. Let's see, there are 12 centimeters and that's where it should stain. Let's see if it has stained, right? Let's see if it stains with 12.2. And that way I know that I'm missing a little bit. Let's see it with 12.2, for example. Okay, there we are at 12.2 and I still don't get dirty because I need a little bit more. Okay, well, that's it, I'll do this until I get dirty when I get to 12. That's the method. Okay, well, I've already got the right measurement. So now I can move forward with the tube. I put the spring where it's most compressed at the bottom, where it's least compressed at the top. We put the spring in slowly. Okay, we've already seen that it's within the correct measurements. Then the washer goes on. Okay, the washer. Your peace of mind, your life is in no one's hands. Okay, the spring is in correctly. Now the separator goes on. The separator, and finally, the cap goes on. Okay, the cap. Well, you have to do that with both hands because you have to push down and turn. Okay, so now I'll show you when I've finished putting it in. I'm doing the same procedure for the right fork, and the only doubt I had about assembling the left fork, which is the one we've seen, because I didn't pay attention, was whether the position of the spring really is. And I'm realizing now, when removing the spring from the left fork, that I've placed it the wrong way around. Okay. The part of the spring that's most compressed is the one that goes on top, and the part that's most separated is the one that goes on the bottom. And I put it the wrong way around on the other fork, but it's very easy, just loosen the cap, which I'll do right now. I take out the spring, turn it over, well, I take out the cap, take out the spacer and take out the washer, spring, turn it over, put the washer, spacer, cap back on and out. That's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so there's no doubt, the most compressed part is the one that goes on top, okay? And the most separated part is the one that goes on the bottom, okay? That I wasn't entirely sure about at the end, but I've already said it very emphatically and the workshop manual doesn't make that clear at all. I mean, it doesn't say it. So, well, that's how things are. Well, now we've changed the oil seals of the two forks and the two tubes, that is, of the two front shock absorbers, and also changed the oil. Okay, now what we have to do is reinstall it. Well, to be able to install it is very simple. In my case, we put the one that had the yellow ITV, which is this one, it was here on my right, on our right, which is the left side of the bike. Well, it goes in through its corresponding little hole, okay? Up here we also make sure that it reaches the point where it was, okay, which is right there in the back. Do you see that it's there in the back? And now we just tighten the nut here a little, just to hold it in place, okay? So that later everything is fixed properly and everything is fine. We simply tighten it a little here to secure it and do the same with the other fork. So I'm going to put the other fork in and leave it without tightening it here a little to secure it, because if we don't, as you can see, it will fall off. Okay? Well, once we have tightened the two forks first and they are flush here, okay? Flush here, what we need to do is tighten these two nuts to torque, which is 38 new, okay? 38 new here, and then tighten these two here. Remember that you always have to tighten these two here before tightening these, because if we tighten these, it compresses the bar and prevents us from tightening the nuts on the fork, okay? So, before tightening the nuts on the top of the seat post, we have to tighten the nuts on the fork. And these go to 23 N, these two here are 38 and the ones on top are 23 N. I tighten them to torque and we continue. And finally, we tighten both screws to torque, okay? Both, yes, the two screws on the top of the seat post. And the tightening torque for these screws here on top, which are 10 mm hexagonal, is 20 N, okay. 20 N of torque. Here I have the torque wrench to tighten them to torque. The next step is to place the front mudguard, if you remember, with these 4 screws, 2 on each side. Let's place them. Let's place it. Remember that when installing the front mudguard, here on my right side, on the top, this bracket for the hydraulic brake circuit is placed, okay? In other words, we have to place this support on this little screw, okay? The support for the brake caliper. Okay? Okay, now we're going to put the front wheel in place. I'm going to get the front wheel and put it in place. I realized that I put the bracket in wrong. The bracket doesn't go inside the screw, but rather comes through here, outside the screw. So, I'm going to undo this and put the bracket in correctly. Oh, and now I've also realized that I put the mudguard in the wrong direction. This is the back part and the other part is the front part. In other words, you have to look closely. Look, one of the signs that you can see to put it in correctly is that this slot here, which is not precisely for the support of the brake caliper circuit, this goes towards the back, not towards the front. Okay, this gap, it goes towards the back. Come on, I'll put it in a second and that's it. Okay, now you see, now this bracket goes here on the outside, not like I had put it on the inside. And now the mudguard is correctly positioned. The shortest part goes in front and the longest part goes in back. Okay? Well, now I just need to put the wheel in front, and for that we have the axle here. This little washer that goes on our left side, that is, on the right side of the bike and the gear shift. So, what we had to do before installing the wheel is grease the axle. Okay, I'm going to grease the axle. Once the axle is greased, we're going to put the front wheel in, okay? Which we have here. So, to put the front wheel in, although I have a specific video on how to put the front wheel in, but anyway, let's see it. We put the axle with the nut on this side and the thread on this side. Okay, we put it in here. And now when it comes out here, well, we can either put or place the wheel here, it'll be easier. Okay, let's place this here on the wheel and I'm going to grease it. Since we're here, I'm going to grease this part here. Okay, let's place this here on the wheel after I grease it and continue inserting the axle. Here we've already passed the axle through this side, through the right side, which is the left side of the camera here. We still need to place the gearbox on this side before passing the axle to the bottle. Okay, I'll place the gearbox and finish passing the axle. This is the speedometer gearbox. Okay, once this side is in place and the gearbox, which also has a position, has a little notch there. Let's see if I can see it well. I can focus it well. Do you see? It has a little notch there to put the gearbox in place. Now all we have to do is tighten it here so that it screws in here. We're going to screw it in, but we're not going to tighten it all the way because before we put this screw in here to secure everything, we have to push it in without squeezing the brake because we don't have the brake on, okay? It's very important, we have to push the fork in, that is, I have to lower the bike and push the fork down a couple of times so that both forks expand properly and are centered. It's very important that they're centered, because if they're not centered, it could damage the bushings inside the wheel, okay? Of the axle here of the wheel. I won't tell you the name, I apologize. So, we tighten this, not all the way. We lower the bike, push the fork in without squeezing the brake. Remember, because we don't have it supported, without squeezing the brake, we push the fork in and once it's done, okay? The fork has expanded properly, it's in place. We finish tightening here and tighten this fixing screw. Okay, I've already pushed the fork down a couple of times without pressing the brake, okay? Without pressing the brake. And now what we're going to do is torque tighten this nut here. The torque for this nut, which is 17, a 17mm hexagonal nut, is 58N okay. Well, let's go ahead and torque it. Sorry, I said it wrong, it's not 17mm, it's 19mm. Okay, the 19mm one. To finish installing the front wheel, we need to tighten this nut to 20N okay? Before tightening this nut, it's a good idea to once again Once we've torqued this nut to 58 N, lower the shock a couple more times, and once we've torqued it down, we'll tighten this nut here to 20 N. Okay, I'll do it and continue. To finish the installation, we need to insert the brake caliper through the brake disc, okay? And tighten the 2 bolts to 35 N of torque. I'll do it and we'll see. As you can see, the brake caliper is now installed. The 2 bolts are already in place and now they need to be tightened to 35 N of torque. And with this we have finished the entire process of replacing the dust seals. I haven't changed them as you've seen. Well, I didn't have a spare, but you've seen how to do the replacement, okay? I'm simply going to put the old one back on as I did. You put the new one on, okay? Change the oil in the forks, change the fork oil seals and dust seals. Okay, well, I hope you liked it and that it's useful to you. See you later.